why my eyes are open and I'm not complaining about what happened at the NFL season opener on today's Think Share. Hello and welcome to Think Share. My name's Zach, here to bring to what I've been thinking about, sharing about, talking about, listening to, reading about that doesn't belong in math class. If you're new to the channel, I invite you to subscribe. The other night, the Chiefs and the Houston Texans went onto the field for the first game of the 2020 to 2021 season, and they did a social civil rights protest. So rather than kneeling for the national anthem, actually, I gotta double check this. I believe the Houston Texans did not go onto the field for that song. Apparently there is a black national anthem which I don't know a ton about, but apparently they did not go onto the field for that as well. And they did come out afterwards for a moment of unity where they locked arms and I think they just stood silently and had a moment of unity. And there was a moment during that where tons and tons of fans, they were socially distanced, so there wasn't nearly the amount of fans that would typically be at an NFL game, booed the players. So I've been listening to some of the commentary on ESPN with Stephen A. Smith, as well as a couple other YouTubers. It's been really interesting hearing other people. But I wanted to share some of my own commentary as well as comment on some of the other commentary. So I think it's really interesting what we've been seeing in professional sports recently. As you may notice, I'm wearing a Colin Kaepernick jersey. I'm a big fan of his, as I thought he made a sacrifice to his career. I thought he made a sacrifice for himself for a greater good. And he brought up a conversation that a lot of people were having a hard time understanding. And I myself, I recognize like maybe 5-6 years ago, I really didn't understand Black Lives Matter. I felt uncomfortable saying it because it did feel like an exclusive statement and saying like, oh, Black Lives Matter, so what about white lives? I just didn't get it. And it's taken me some time, but I've come to really understand the purpose and the way that argument, that statement is presented. And I've come to really understand that the reason that people say Black Lives Matter, like why that's a statement, why people stand with that, is because it is the way that we're seeing things unfold in the criminal justice systems is that white lives clearly matter, and we don't need to say much more about that. It's clear that white lives matter, and it's not clear that people value black lives. That's why they make that statement. So from there, I want to say I very much believe in this cause. I believe in this movement. I recognize how a lot of the rioting and a lot of the looting have left a bad taste in the mouth for a lot of people, and it sucks that that exists and that is seen as being the same as the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's really interesting. So I'll start with, I think it's really interesting, something that Stephen A. Smith pointed out, which was that it's almost good that the people were booing at the game because it became all of a sudden very clear that some people were just not okay with Black Lives Matter. They weren't, as much as it was them standing for unity, there's no reason to boo unity. So it was clear that they were not booing unity, it was they're booing what they thought was, and for somewhat was, a stand and of unity for that Black Lives Matter. And so Stephen A. Smith pointed out, like, the fact that they're pointing themselves out by booing, the point that they're making themselves heard, that there are people that are very clearly against this message, is very eye-opening, and it makes it really obvious who the white supremacists are in this country. And he was having a back and forth conversation with his other host, I forget his name, but I think they're both really glad that they did this stand for unity and did that moment for it. And I think it was like scary almost. Like I didn't hear it live, but I listened to it obviously after. It was alarming how much they were booing it. Like I remember back in 2017, I went to a Patriots game and there were a couple of players that kneeled, and I remember sitting around a bunch of people that were booing, and it was crazy. It was like a crazy experience hearing all the people around me boo, and I just totally disagreed with them that they have a total freedom of speech and they have a freedom to protest. Yes, you could say that they're employed by the NFL and they're choosing to make a move that will likely hurt their career based especially on where the NFL was at that point in time, that they weren't going to stand with the players that were protesting. And I thought it was a selfless move for them to do that and point out, this country's not really supporting us, and that systemic racism exists, and this country is not supporting us, so why should we stand for the flag? And I think the conversation was changed to that they weren't supporting troops. Yes, they're supporting troops. They're supporting freedom. I've met plenty of troops and veterans that have said, like, we fought for the right to speak and speak freely. Like in Russia, those people cannot speak freely. If someone comes up against Vladimir Putin, they might get whacked. In America, that's not the case. You can talk your shade against Donald Trump and nothing's going to happen to you. You have that freedom. And so the fact that people are booing is, well, I'm not going to complain about that. They do them. I thought it was very alarming and very clear. It was a very clear message. It occurred to me that there is white supremacy and that people are very against Black Lives Matter. So for someone to be against Black Lives Matter, watching a game where there's a lot of black people, very interesting. That they only respect them on an athletic level, but not like a human level. Another person that I don't have the channel name in front of me. It's a very small channel that they had a lot more views than they normally get. It was a black man that has very conservative views. He was sort of condemning people that were complaining, which is ironic because he's complaining. He was complaining he was saying about how the players shouldn't be playing if they don't agree with the customer. And I think the sort of the counter argument that I would say to him is that the NFL and the players are big enough that they don't have to stand with what the NFL fans want because they're bigger than that. When you are bigger and you can unionize, which the players are, there's the Players Association. I'm a teacher. There's a Teachers Association. When there's enough of you and you can organize, then you don't necessarily have to succumb to the whims of the customers. As teachers, we don't have to completely succumb to the whims of parents and politicians and school districts. I'm actually not currently in union, so I kind of have to if I want to keep my job. However, the players are in a players union, so they can organize. They are organized and they can do strikes. They can do things because the league itself is really nothing without its superstars. So they can do whatever they want. It's their platform. Like if they wanted to, they could all of a sudden have a play where they need the ball and just don't play the game. They can do that. So I think it's ironic that he is like annoyed about, I think he was complaining about people complaining about the people that were booing. And I could get that. Like, I'm not going to complain about people booing. I'm going to point out that that is white supremacy. I'm not going to complain that exists. I'm just going to be completely aware that it exists. So from there, I don't know what to do from there. I am more supportive of the NFL than I was before, especially the fact that They are supporting players having a voice. They're supporting teams having a voice. And the players, I'm sure, given that a lot of them are people of color, have gone through experiences of racism, have gone through systemic racism. I know a lot of them have climbed to the top of sort of the fame ladder, if you will, and have gotten past that in some respects. I feel weird saying that, but I think it was a really great move. I was glad to see the players do it. I think it is very telling what the fans did in response, and it is very interesting how people are responding to it all. I'm behind the NFL, I'm behind the players doing it. I almost find it a little disappointing that they're talking about how people were complaining about Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, sort of declining to want to do these things because his customer base is likely very conservative and very white supremacist, probably, given that it's in Texas and it's America's team, the Cowboys. So I don't complain about that. If I were a Cowboys fan, I might boycott, but it'll be interesting to see where that goes from there. I can see where people would complain. The YouTuber that I've been referring to, he was saying that Jerry Jones just understands business. So yes, he is sacrificing maybe morals. He might be sacrificing the experience of his players that he employs for the dollar. So is that selling his soul? We'll let you decide. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. I feel like I've expressed myself here, so thank you for listening to me. I have the feeling I'm going to be making more videos like this, as I feel like the things that upset me the most are things that I am more likely to talk about on YouTube. I find it easier to talk about, that I don't have to think as hard about. It's been great to have something to comment on that I feel passionate about. So again, thank you for listening. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Give it a like if you like this. Give it a dislike if you dislike this. Let me know why you dislike this and any other videos you might want to hear me talk about. I may or may not take up your requests. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Stay weird, humans.